Hello, and welcome to the final lesson of the ATC Basics course. This is the radio discipline lesson where we will cover the basic vocabulary for you to start talking like a controller. We'll start from the building blocks of any language, the alphabet. We will use the IKO phonetic alphabet, with phonetic alphabet meaning that each letter is represented by a distinct word. A is alpha, B is bravo, and so on. If you don't know the phonetic alphabet, this will probably be what you spend the most time practicing on at the beginning. There's not really an easy way to memorize the phonetic alphabet quickly, but just practicing or perhaps finding a catchy phonetic alphabet song on YouTube as I did may help. The phonetic alphabet is used when we say individual letters, for example, when naming taxiways. Many letters can be easy to mix up by themselves, so we use the phonetic alphabet instead to reduce miscommunication. Not everything goes by the phonetic alphabet, of course. Waypoints like Xerxes can be said as they appear, although if either you or the pilot doesn't know how to say the waypoint name, or there's some confusion, it is better to clear that misunderstanding by spelling the waypoint out phonetically. The same is true for airports. There are only several airports in Flightline, so memorizing them is no issue, but you can also call them phonetically by their four-letter codes, if needed. Tofan could instead be called Juliet Tango Papa Hotel, JTPH, if spelled phonetically. If you ever need to say the abbreviations SID or STAR, they are pronounced as is, not phonetically. And with runway names, 27L would be runway 27 left, not 27 Lima. 27R would be 27 right, and if it existed, 27C would be 27 center. With numbers, there are also some special rules. Since the TH sound is difficult for some people to pronounce, 3 is pronounced as tree, and since 9 is no in German, 9 is pronounced as niner. These two rules do not have to strictly be followed, but just know that these pronunciations exist. As for the rules that you do have to follow, all numbers are said individually. Going back to the runway names, runway 27 left is always 27, never 27. Also, 0 should always be pronounced as 0, never O. With the letters and numbers out of the way, let's look at the first time you call an aircraft. All transmissions you make should start with the call sign of the aircraft you're talking to. This is to alert the pilot that the rest of the message is for them. Next, on first contact, you will do what is called facility identification. Whenever you talk to an aircraft for the first time, you also tell the pilot what position you are. If I was talking to Cathay 193 for the first time, I would start with Cathay 193, Tofan delivery, and then continue with my transmission. This only applies to the first time that you talk to an aircraft though. Any subsequent transmissions should omit your position. In this example, we used a radio check as a first transmission, which isn't uncommon. For radio checks, you can respond on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 meaning that you hear them with no problems. Please describe to the pilot what makes them difficult to hear, such as static or low mic sensitivity if such problems exist. Alternative to 5 by 5, it is also common to reply loud and clear if there are no issues. You as a controller may also ask pilots for a radio check if you are unsure how your microphone is performing. Moving to the basics of how we essentially say yes, no, and okay, we have these three words. Affirmative, or affirm, are the aviation equivalents of saying yes to a question or confirming that information is correct. For example, if a pilot wanted to confirm the squawk code they are assigned, they might say, confirm squawk 6300, in which case you would reply, affirmative. On the other hand, if that was wrong, and the aircraft squawk was actually supposed to be 6310, you might say, negative, squawk 6310. Negative is the aviation equivalent of saying no. It is also how you would tell pilots that they've read back something to you incorrectly. We use these instead of yes and no to make communication very clear and to also remove the potential for slang, which can be culture dependent. Roger can be thought of as the equivalent of saying okay. Roger is a neutral term that simply acknowledges that you've heard and understood something, but the important difference is that it does not clear the pilot to do anything or imply any clearance. That is to say, if a pilot said that they were requesting taxi, for example, replying Roger would not be advised, though if you did, it would not give the pilot clearance to start taxiing. You are simply acknowledging whatever the transmission was. An example of this in action would be a pilot informing you of a change that they will make to their flight plan. the pilot is already going to make the change and is just informing you, so you can simply reply, Roger. Now, if you don't hear something or want a transmission repeated, that's where confirm and say again come in. Confirm is used to ask for confirmation that some information or readback was correct. In this example, ATC is confirming that Etihad 134 read back correctly the squawk of 6301. The pilot responds by affirming the assigned squawk is what they read back, and by reading back the squawk again to ensure that ATC knows they got it right. In the case that you need an entire transmission repeated though, simply ask the pilot to say again. Once you're done talking to an aircraft, you will hand them off, telling them to go talk to the next controller responsible for them. When doing this, you will usually use the word contact, telling the pilot to switch frequencies, or in the server's case voice channels, as well as to call that controller, letting them know that they are on that controller's frequency now. The main point of this slide is to make sure you don't mix up saying contact with saying monitor. The difference is that telling the pilot to monitor a frequency only tells them to switch frequencies, but not to call the controller. Instead, they should wait for the controller to call them. We do not generally use monitor, however, you can use it when an aircraft is being switched to Unicom, which is the universal frequency for uncontrolled aircraft. This is where aircraft will go when no controller is available, and pilots instead state what they are doing, so other pilots also on Unicom know where they are and can prevent a collision. Lastly, we'll go over what we call aircraft, in other words, call signs. For all air carriers, their call signs are abbreviated by 3-letter codes, followed by their flight number. You don't have to necessarily memorize all the 3-letter codes, as you'll grow more familiar with them as you gain more experience. A list of the airlines in flight line is pinned in ATC Trainee Chat, though some pilots choose to use their own call signs not in the game. In those cases, or if you don't know a call sign, then it's always okay to just ask the pilot what their call sign is. They should also call you first normally, and at that time they will also say their call sign. If it's really not possible to figure out what or how to say a call sign, always fall back on the phonetic alphabet. You can simply spell their call sign phonetically if need be. For example, Japan Airlines' 3-letter code is JAL. Spelling this phonetically would just be Juliet Alpha Lima. There are also some call signs, namely general aviation call signs, that only use the phonetic alphabet, so don't worry if there are call signs that you don't recognize. That's all for this lesson and for the ATC Basics course. Congratulations! Please ask any questions you have in ATC Trainee Chat or to an instructor, and I hope to see you in the Clearance Delivery course. With that, we'll see you on the scopes.